My name is Bob Darrell, and I am alcoholic. Because AA works, I haven't had a drink or any mind or emotion-altering medication since October 31st, 1978. I want to thank Jared for picking me up in the airport. Just in the short ride over here, I got to learn more about him than I ever imagined I needed to know. If it would have been a 3-hour trip, I would have hung myself. I am delighted. I had to do that to him. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. I got a lot of new people. I'm really glad you're here, man. Oh, and especially if you're new, you've been to some places. I'm sure you've been to church and therapy and the parole office and all kinds of stuff. This is different. This is not like any of that stuff. I mean, for Jackie and Bobby Earl, the newest two members that got the book. Where else on the planet where you'll get a standing ovation and a prize for recently burning your life to the ground? Won't get that anywhere else, I'm telling you. It's always seemed so. Let's find out who's the newest to being sober. Who's the sick? Let's give them something. I mean, it's an odd thing. Now, when you go to when you leave here, you go to regular AA meetings. You're not going to get a standing ovation and a prize for. If you're new, welcome. This is different. We know some things about you. If you're new, matter of fact, we probably know more about you than you do. We know that you've been worrying about yourself a lot lately, haven't you? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Money's been a problem, hasn't it? Yeah, I know. It's just, nobody really understands you. I know. Yeah. And the reason we know that about you is that's us. And it's so. Alcoholics Anonymous is such an amazing place for people who are hell-bent convinced that their case is different and come here and find out you're just common. So it's disappointing. But it's brought me out of the loneliness and separation and isolation of alcoholism into community, and that most of the things I thought were so have been proven to be wrong. That my case really wasn't different. That I had the same thing that you had. And I'm delighted. If you ever come to Las Vegas, I'm a member of a home group that I'm very proud to be a member of that group. It's called the Connect the Dots group. We meet 4 times a week. We have open meetings, and we have 11 panels every week that we take into institutions. And if you were to go to that group, the members of that group know that that's my home group by my actions. Very important. Not because of what I say. I have a sponsor, and more importantly than telling you I have a sponsor, if you were to talk to my sponsor, he knows he's my sponsor by my actions. If you've got a sponsor who's not sure if they're your sponsor, they're not. I mean, right? And the hardest thing about having a sponsor is being sponsorable. That is ego reduction at depth. That somebody as brilliant as I know you imagine you are, because I imagined I was the smartest guy in the room, would take direction from someone who, when you observe them for a little while, you know they're not as smart as you are, right? But it hinged on a surrender that happened to me in 1978, and I didn't know a lot. I had just tried to kill myself. I'd been relapsing since I was 19, in and out of institutions, and I just tried to kill myself. And a guy pulled me aside after one of my earlier meetings, and he said to me, he said, "Kid, you need to take step 3." And I looked at the wall where the steps were, and I said to Joe, "Joe, I can't take step 3." Joe said, "How come?" I said, the truth is, Joe, I don't believe in God. And Joe said to me, he said, you don't have to believe in God to take step 3. I said, well, Joe, look, with step 2 came to believe. Step 3, God as we understand him. I don't have any of that. He said, I'll tell you again, kids, you don't have to believe in God to take step 3. And he says, I'll tell you what, if you'll turn your will and your life over to this chair, and he points to a chair, I guarantee you an instant miracle. So I thought, oh, what the hell? All right, Joe, I turn my will and my life over to the chair. And Joe gets a big smile and says, the miracle is your life's no longer in the hands of an idiot. And I got it. I mean, I didn't get offended. I just thought, oh, yeah, that'd be right, wouldn't it? Because I've been relapsing for over a half dozen years. I just tried to kill myself. I had burnt my life to the ground until on my last drunk, as my sponsor says, there was no friendly direction anywhere. Anywhere. Not even in the bottle. There was no more relief there. There was no more hope there. Somehow, and I didn't understand it, I didn't know what had happened to me, but it was horrible, is that I wrung all the ease and comfort and that sense of freedom out of the bottle until there was none left. The last couple years of my drinking, I drank in depression. I drank in terrible, terrible loneliness. I'd go and cry and jag sometimes. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't want to be around people when I drank, because other people can drink and get lit up like I used to. And it breaks my heart to see you drink and get what I want so badly, and I can't get it. So I drank by myself. I was an oblivion drinker. I would drink and pass out and come to, and drink and pass out and come to. And most of the time I'd come to, and I don't know if the sun's coming up or the sun's going down. I don't really care, because I just fumble around for that bottle or for some change to go out and get another bottle of Richard's Wild Irish Rose. Oh, there's so many Richard Wild Irish Rose. Oh, yeah, there's a couple. Homeboys. All right. I don't think Richard's Wild Irish Rose has ever been within 100 miles of a grape. If you read the ingredients, it's neutral grain spirits and grape flavoring. But it was about 20%, and it gets you downtown now, man. That's all I cared about. I don't care about the last couple of years of my drinking. I don't care about taste. I care about. I want to get I used to go into liquor stores sometimes, and I'd do the math with the proof and the dollars, because it's all about let's get the most amount of blot bob out for the least amount of money. And that was the way it was at the very end. But it hadn't always been that way. There was a time in the early days of drinking when the hook is set, alcohol did something that was spectacular for me. It did that thing that I could have never put it into words, but until it happens, you don't know it needed to be done until it's done. And what it really did is it set me free. I'm the kid. By the time I took my first drink, I was almost 13 years old, and I ain't right inside, and I don't know why I ain't right. So I have become the pretend guy. I became the guy who pretended he wasn't afraid, and I was afraid a lot. I became the guy who pretended he fit, and I didn't fit. But I didn't want you to know how awkward and weird I was. Became the guy who pretended he was okay, and I'm not okay. And those of us that have lived the double life, we always walk around with an anxiousness of being found out. And I saw a thing on TV years ago. It really made me think about something that I think, in a sense, alcohol possibly saved my life. This documentary was about one of those schools where there was a kid and he just all of a sudden went crazy and killed a bunch of people, right? And they were interviewing people who knew him. Now, my first response is, oh, he must have been loaded. No, he wasn't. He never got high. But as people described him, they were describing me before I ever picked up my first drink, where I just resented a lot of people as cliquey and stupid. And the cases are building and building and building. And I'll tell you, if I wouldn't have found alcohol, I might have been that guy that would have snapped And I could have been dead today or in prison. I don't know. But when I found alcohol, something amazing happened. I'm with a bunch of older kids, and I want to fit with them so badly. These are the kids that had some kind of power that, I wanted it so bad. These are the kids that were in and out of juvie. These are the kids that fought a lot. These are the kids that when they walked into a junior high school dance, the other kids got out of the way. Man, I wanted what they had. I want to be the person, I want to be the guy making people afraid rather than the guy who's afraid all the time. And I just thought, deludedly, I thought that if I could hang around with them and did everything that they did, maybe some of their something would rub off on some of my nothing. And so I'm doing what they do. I'm stealing. I'm fighting. I'm cussing. I start smoking cigarettes. I'm doing everything they do. And we pulled this burglary, and we broke into a house in the town I lived in, and we went right to the liquor. It went right by the TV to the liquor. But they knew something I didn't. They knew where the power was. Power wasn't in the TV. The power's in that liquor cabinet. And we stole a bunch of bottles of whiskey. And I don't know what it did for those other kids, but man, after the burning stopped, it just lit me up. All of a sudden, I could come out and play. All of a sudden, I didn't have to pretend I was cool. Man, I was freaking cool. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like I was blowing my mind. I'm so cool. I mean, I would have followed me. I mean, I was that guy. I mean, you get half lit up. I'm funny. I'm not funny sober. I'm a mope. You get me half lit up. I'm funny. I crack me up. I'm funny. Man, and over the years, in the first few years of drinking, it was spectacular. I could go to a dance. Now, I don't like dances because I don't know how to dance. About a pint of 151 rum and the rhythm of the universe flows through me, man. I can dance. Now, I don't know where that comes from, but I won a dance contest, for God's sakes. I don't even know how to dance. I used to hang out with a bunch of other hoodlums at this pool hall, and I'd get not drunk, but just drunk, little drunk. Get a little drunk, and I could get in that zone. I couldn't miss, man. I'd be shooting. We were shooting those 125 pointers. I'd run a rack and a half. I couldn't do that sober. But I'd get in that zone where everything just clicked. I remember times with just, late at night, drinking a little wine and smoking reefer. We'd start talking about it's like you get brighter. And start talking about the deep things, the deep, cracking the secrets of the universe, I remember saying to my buddies one night, this is what Buddha saw. Hey, I mean, you see the big picture, right? Now, you know what happens? You sober up and I'm back to being me again. Oh, man. I loved alcohol. I loved the effect of alcohol. Say, if it wasn't for alcohol, I don't mean to crash, but I think I'd be celibate to this day. Because I had so much fear. Oh, my God, I was so afraid of girls. I couldn't even talk to them. But you get me about half drunk, and I'd start channeling someone cool. You know what I mean? I'd hear words come out of my mouth that just amaze me. Where's that coming from? And I loved the effect of alcohol. And I'll tell you what I've come to believe from talking to a lot of people I sponsor and people in AA. I don't think that if alcohol had never did that for you, later you'd never let it do to you what it's going to do to you if you ain't chasing what you can't catch was what it once did for you. And that's my big secret. Is regardless of the juvenile court, regardless of being sent away, regardless of the trouble, regardless of the broken hearts, regardless of all of it, I still liked myself better when I was drinking than I ever liked myself sober. And how do you say that? How do you even say that to yourself in the light of all the problems that are in your life as a result of drinking? Because I'm not stupid. I get that the reason I'm getting arrested, the reason I lost that job, the reason that relationship, the reason my parents want anything to do with me, I get it, drinking. And yet, I still like myself better drunk than I do sober. It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, I'm an alcoholic. Not because I drink alcohol. Not even because I drink alcohol abusively. There's a lot of people that do that aren't alcoholic. I'm alcoholic because of the reaction I get to alcohol when I drink it. There's something that happens to me, regardless of what you fancy your other problems are, your drug of choice. That's what treatment centers say. They say, ask you crazy questions. What's your drug of choice? The only thing I can think of is, well, what do you got? I mean, I don't know. That's the wrong question. That's not a good question for me. What they should ask me is, what happens to you when you drink alcohol? Well, I really think this is my problem. Yeah, fine. What happens to you when you drink alcohol? Do you have that allergic reaction that our book refers to as a phenomenon of craving? When you drink alcohol, do you break out in an irresistible yearning for more? Are you the guy like I am that if you were to take the test in the big book, which says if you don't think you're an alcoholic, maybe you think your problem is really some drug or your emotions. It's really emotional problems. I don't think I'm alcoholic. I don't think I have alcohol. But I'm going to go see. I'm going to go do what these A's, it says in that stupid blue book. I'm going to go down to this bar. I'm going to go try some controlled drinking. I'm going to try to drink it, stop abruptly. All right, I'm going to go in there, see what I'm going to see these AA people are full of crap. I'm going to have 2 drinks, and that's it. Then I got to go home. So that two doubles, and then I'll go home. 2 doubles, and then I'll go home. And now you can't smoke nothing, take nothing, 2 drinks, that's it. Well, if you're like me, about halfway through that second drink, it's going to become very apparent to you that this is a bad test day. Because that game's on. I didn't know that game was on, for God's sakes. I can't leave now. Oh my God, do you see that girl that just came in? I think that's my soulmate. I have to have a drink with her. Or Jared walked in. He's got some good stuff to smoke. I got to have a drink with Jared. Tomorrow would be a better test day. And if I went back tomorrow to try the same test, as the allergic reaction to the alcohol kicks in, unbeknownst to me, it uses my own mind against me. And I don't see it as a phenomenon of craving. It looks like I just changed my mind. And my alcoholism punked me out like that time and time again. I'm sure I'm not the only one here that's ever gotten in trouble, like bad trouble drinking. You know, where you know how I'm a blackout drinker. Any blackout drinkers here? Oh. It's hard going through life and other people know more about you than you do, I'll tell you. Oh, and I never did anything good in a blackout. Nobody ever came up to me the next day and said, "Oh, Bob, you were so helpful last night." You peed in our kitchen. Yeah. You told us you beat Bruce Lee in a karate match? And on and on. It's all bad. So you come off one of those terrible drunks, and you know there's people, I'll tell you, they're like emotional vampires. They just wait to tell you what you did the night before. Oh, you know what I mean? They just love, it's like Christmas for them. You peed our kitchen, did I? And you get something really, really disgusting and embarrassing, and something that maybe could have put you in prison for a number of years. And if you're like me, it scares you. It scares the crap out of you. Especially because you don't even remember doing it. So I say to myself, I'm not gonna take drinking off the table. That's extreme. That'd be overcorrecting. But I can't do that again. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go out and meet my buddies because I'm tense. Just gonna relax a little bit, shoot a little pool with my buddies. I'll go out. 8 drinks, I'll have 8. 8's a good number. 8's a comfortable number. 8's a secure number. I think 8's good. I've never punched a cop on 8. I never did anything really, I never tried to take your grandmother home on 8. I mean, eight's a good number. It's a good number. It's good. I say to 8. And if you have ever tried this, when you get to 7, you have an awakening that 8's a bad number. It's always like that. So I have this allergic reaction to alcohol. And I came from a time, where there was a lot of drugs on the table. I mean, I was a wannabe. I was a musician, and I was in bands, and that's just part of that lifestyle. But the abusive use of drugs does not make you an alcoholic. Now, if someone has a different experience than this, I'm willing to listen to you. I've never met an alcoholic, a real chronic alcoholic yet, that could safely use drugs. But I've met many drug addicts who could drink. At the end of the Vietnam War, we saw thousands. I was part of that deal. We saw thousands and thousands of guys coming back from Southeast Asia with heroin addictions off the charts because it was so pure and so cheap down there. Do you know that some of those guys were like me? They ended up switching to alcohol or burning their life to the ground here. But there was a lot of those guys who, by every clinical definition, were drug addicts. And yet, when they went through the VA hospital, they got the monkey off their back. They went through some post-traumatic stress disorder counseling. And 40-some years later, they can have 2 beers with their buddies, and they're not compelled to burn their life to the ground. And yet, their problem came within a substance. My problem comes within me. Alcoholism doesn't come in bags and bottles, it comes in people. And the litmus test that Dr. Silkworth discovered to find out if you have alcoholism, do you have the allergic reaction to alcohol? And that's big in AA. And the reason it's big is that we don't care if you have other problems. Really, we don't care if you did heroin or cocaine or pills. We don't care if you gamble. We don't care if you watch porno until you end up in the burn unit. We don't care. We don't care any of that stuff. We don't care. It's just, but you have to have alcoholism. And the reason you have to have alcoholism, because if you don't, that means you could take it or leave it alone. And you could be an Alcoholics Anonymous 20 years sponsoring people and drink occasionally because it's not a problem and you just don't say nothing because you don't want those fanatics about the alcohol in AA to say nothing. And so you could, and I'll tell you, that's the frightening thing about that. That would make AA a very unsafe place for me. Because if I can't trust that you were like me in this area, now you may have some other problems I don't have, but I got to know if I'm going to come here and trust you and trust this, I think that's the first thing we trust here. That my sponsor, he can't drink just like I can't drink. I got a few different problems than he does. But I can't drink and he can't drink. And that's the first bridge here. That when he picks up a drink, the same thing happens to him that happens to me. And I have alcoholism, and it's good to know that. Until I relapsed for a number of years. And what it says in the beginning of chapter 3 is really true when it says that most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I'll be a drug addict. There's a little panache in that. I had heroes that were rock stars who were professed drug addicts. I'll be that. That's cool. I'll be a mental health case, because if you're a mental health case, you get pills and sympathy. I like both of those. I'll be a mental health, but I don't want to be an alcoholic. I had uncles, and I had people in my family who were alcoholics. They were obnoxious, and they were pathetic, and everybody talked crap about them, and I am not going to be like that. But people who argue with the truth get sick. And I had alcoholism. And it didn't matter that I didn't want to believe I had alcoholism. I still had it. And I got worse and worse over the years. And I got started, one of the worst things that happens in this disease, the way it progresses, in the beginning, man, I'd go out to party with my buddies, and it was spectacular. There was a whole bunch of feeling of free. There was a whole bunch of ease and comfort and fun, little bit of problems occasionally. And as time went on, the problems got worse and the fun got less. And it was until the very end, all that magical effect that I got from drinking just seemed to have bled out until there's nothing there. And it's just problems. Problems that I don't know what to do, and I can't stop creating them. And I'm stuck in a trap I can't spring because I can't imagine life without it, and yet it's turned on me and became so horrific I can't imagine life with it either. Our book refers to that as the jumping off place where we wish for the end. And I didn't understand. I think that's the worst thing that alcoholism did to me. Not that it ruined my relationship with my family or destroyed every opportunity for education or job or career or for love and relationships. It destroyed all that. But I'll tell you, I'm a funny guy. I'll roll with that. Right? I'll roll with that if I could still get an hour every night of getting free. And the worst thing is after alcohol burnt my life to the ground, and then it pulled the plug on the feeling of freedom. And now I drink, and I'm so locked up in me. And I drink in depression. I drink in this horrid, horrid loneliness. The kind of loneliness that if I'm sleeping on your couch and everybody's passed out at 4 o'clock in the morning, man, I can't sleep, and I'm on my phone calling up ex-girlfriends and crying into the phone. We should have got married. And then her husband gets on and threatens me. I call up people I went to, in desperation, people I went to like grade school with and stuff, just because I'm so lonely. And I don't understand why I'm so lonely, because alcohol used to connect me to people and to life itself. But it doesn't do that anymore. It's turned on me, and I don't know what's wrong with me. And I've gone to a lot of treatment centers. My mother was a therapist, and she, because of her and my dad's influence, they got me in to see some of the great psychiatrists on the planet. I identify so much with Roland Hazard's story. When he was sent by his family to see Carl Jung. Carl Jung was the top of the food chain for therapy at that time. And I went to guys like that too. And did a lot of work. But it never changed me. I'd get new diagnoses, new medications. I'd get hope. And 3 weeks later, I'm just back to being me again. And the shine of whatever that new thing was is worn off. And as Chamberlain used to say, he said, if you're alcoholic and you're not drinking, but you haven't had a spiritual awakening, no matter what you do, you're eventually going to get to a place where you can no longer find anything to put between you. And there you are. And I hate that. When the shine of everything I've acquired and brought into my life is worn off and it's just me again. I hate that. And I get real thirsty when I'm like that. In spite of the knowledge that alcohol is destroying me, I'll take another run at it because I don't know what else to do. Because it was the only thing that had ever set me free. And even though it hasn't done that for a couple years, I won't give up hope that I can jumpstart that effect again. I can jumpstart that party. I'll tell you, this sounds weird. I think at the end of my drinking, I was dying from hope. I couldn't become hope. I have something in me that does not want to give up hope. Hope that somehow, someday, I'm going to control and enjoy my drinking. Or someday, somehow, I'm going to control and enjoy my abstinence. Because the thing that was confusing to me is I started to understand that I had this abnormal reaction to alcohol and I can't take the first drink. What almost killed me is I didn't understand I had an abnormal reaction to abstinence. And that's what's killing me. As I get sober, and I'm everything it talks about in that book, I get sober. And after a while, man, I just get myself on myself. Like that creature in that movie Alien, that it just attaches itself to your face. It's just me smeared across my consciousness. It's all I see is me and my pathetic past and my scary future and what you think of me and my emotions, and it's all right here, and I can't get it off of me. And so I start thinking about drinking, because alcohol is the only thing that I ever found in my whole life when I was like that would let me fall off of me. We all have what's happening is I'm sober, but I'm smothering my very being with myself in this obsessive self-involvement. We all do the same thing. 6 months of not drinking with untreated alcoholism. You take the first drink, we all do this, we just about all do the same thing. First thing you do is, like somebody turned the air back on. It's like I've been stuck halfway breathing up until that moment, like I'm locked up, I'm suffocating here. But I couldn't have put that into words. I just know I just feel bad. And then I drank. And at the end of my drinking, there's no more relief in alcohol for me, and it's become pathetic. And I am in this trap I can't spring when drinking is awful and pathetic and depressing, and abstinence feels like I'm doing time. Everything Silkworth says, when I get sober, I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontent. What does that mean? We all kind of know what that means. That restlessness, that inability to feel comfortably settled anywhere. You know, that sense I had most of my life, wherever I was, I need to be somewhere else. Where is that? I don't know. It's just not here. I'm irritable, but I don't think I'm irritable. I don't want to be irritable, because irritable people irritate me. I'll tell you, I don't like irritable people. So I'm not irritable. What I am is I'm a guy who, when I'm sober, I can see very clearly how stupid everybody is. It's a gift. Everywhere, I'm like that kid in that movie, Sixth Sense, who walks around and says, I see dead people. I see stupid people. Everywhere I look, I see stupid people. Oh, and then you're in and out of AA, so you go to AA meetings, they got all the stupid people grouped in Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd worked in the field for a while. I'd been in so much therapy. AA was intellectually offensive to me. I'd go to AA meetings and all this happy, clappy, grateful for everything. People that are happy and grateful, they're just too stupid to see the problems in life. They're too stupid. They're ignorant is what they are. Right? And oh God, people in AA are grateful for everything. I remember sitting in a halfway house in Pennsylvania. I'd burnt my life to the ground again. Sitting in that day room, this endless parade of do-gooders from AA who want to come in there and tell me how wonderful their life is. I remember sitting there thinking, this is hell. I've died and gone to hell. It's not bad enough that you burned your life to the ground, you destroy everything you love, you got to sit there and have your face rubbed in how wonderful other people are. That's hell. Oh, people ain't weird. They're weird. They seem like they love everybody. Just love. You ever be depressed? You just ruined your life, and have somebody in AA come up to you and say, has anyone told you today they love you? Oh, stop it. You don't know what the answer is, but you know a hug's coming. Oh, don't touch me. Oh, you're creeping me out here, man. I'm telling you. Oh, God, and then God. God's everything. God, this, God. I'm an atheist. It's offensive to me, all this God. All right, be objective. I'm not really an atheist. I'm a wannabe atheist. I've known some real atheists, and if you've ever known real atheists, you have to be very religious about your atheism to be a good atheist. I can't get that much angst about it. What I truthfully am is I'm an anti-religionist who's afraid of God. I am the guy by nature, if I think you don't like me, I'm going to not like you first. And I knew that about God. I knew I would never, ever measure up to him. I'm too staid. I'm too bad at being good, and I'm too good at being bad. I will never, ever merit his help. I knew that in the core of my being. You could quote the Bible, you could do all kinds. It doesn't matter. I know that in here. I know that. And so I used to talk about God. Oh no, man, there's no God here. I was taught about God as a kid. I got to tell you something. When I was taught about God as a kid in Catholic school, I listened with the mind of a chronic alcoholic, a mind infused with self-centered fear. The alcoholic mind is like a problem-seeking missile. It only does threat assessments. So I don't hear about a God of love. That's not a problem. I hear about a God of judgment, a God with strict rules, a God who could see in the dark, which that's not good for me. A God who could read my mind. Oh my God, what a hideous proposition. And not only read my mind, he would judge me not for what I did, but also for what I thought about. I was in like grade school at this young nun. I think she was pretty. You couldn't tell with all the hardware, but I think she was pretty. And she used to say we have to be pure, thought, word, deed. And I'd sit there, little kid, I'm trying to be good. I'm not even had a chance to really be bad yet, just thinking some stuff. And I'm trying to be good, and I'd be sitting there and you go, pure of thought, word, and deed. Yes, sister. And my mind would start to picture her naked. Oh, I was horrified. I thought, oh my God, that sin's not even in the books. I mean, you can't go into that church and get in that little wooden box with that priest and tell him that. He'll come out and beat the crap out of you. Right? So it's another brick in the wall that I cower behind, convinced that my case is different. Because nobody I went to Catholic school with, they just seemed to just believe in God. And then there's me. I'm so delighted that everything I've ever thought about God has been wrong. And that you guys told me when I was new, if I could you just kept telling me, you're a dummy. Everything you think you know is wrong. And that's kind of a paraphrase right out of the big book. It said the first thing in step 2, it says is lay aside your prejudice. My first sponsor, and some of the old timers they call me dumb. You're dumb. You don't know. You're dumb. You're a dummy. Every time I come up with a good idea, well, where's all your good ideas got you before, kid? They just turn that stuff around on you. And then the second thing they say is, if you could just express even a willingness to believe. And I'm so glad that I found out not by what you told me, and not by what it says in the book. I found out through my actual experience in reality how wrong I was about God, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted God doesn't judge me for what I think. Because on a bad spiritual hair day, I got 2 movies that run in my head. One's sex and the other's violence. I mean, I could be driving on the freeway. I'll kill him. I'll do her. I'll kill him. I haven't even done nothing. I'm just driving across town, for God's sake. You know what I mean? Right? I'm so glad God doesn't judge me for what I think, but only what I do. And I'm so delighted that Alcoholics Anonymous is an action-oriented program. We don't really, if you're new here and you're like me and you don't believe in God, or you're afraid of God, or you doubt if there's a God, you don't have to believe in God. All you've got to do is take the actions of someone who is willing to consider the possibility. That's all. Express even a willingness. And the old timers had me doing crazy stuff I didn't believe in. My first sponsor, he said, I want you to get physically down on your knees every morning and every night and ask whatever's running the universe for help. He said, yeah, you want me to pray? Yeah, I want you to pray. I said, well, I don't believe in God. He said, I didn't ask you if you believe in God. I asked you to pray. Well, if I don't believe in God and I pray, I'd be a hypocrite. He said, you've been a hypocrite all your life. What's the difference? Just do it. This is crazy. You mean I want me to pray even if I don't believe in God? Just pray. I started praying. Felt stupid. I was in a men's halfway house, in a room with bunk beds. I am not going to pray in front of a bunch of guys in a halfway house. So what I do is I go in the bathroom, I lock the door, I take the throw rug and I push it up under the crack in the door so if anybody tries to peek under there and see me, great, they can't see me. And I get down on my knees and I feel stupid. And I just say, well, okay, whatever's running the universe, please help me today. And then I get down and do that at night, say thank you for this day of sobriety. And I felt awkward. But a funny thing started happening from the moment I turned my consciousness in that direction. From the moment I started taking the actions of someone who believed, even though I don't believe, something started changing and shifting in the very fabric of the universe. It was like I started having good luck. Crazy, crazy good luck. The kind of good luck where I'm a basket case. I don't know that it's self-centered fear. I don't know that my head has been working me over. I don't even know what's wrong. I just feel crazy and nuts and I'm horrible. And then I go to a meeting and there'll be some guy in the meeting describing what's going on with me from his experience. And then talking about what he always does when that has that much fear going on. How he has to talk about it and pray about it. And I sit there and go, oh my God. That didn't happen once or twice. That happened dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Until even the skeptic that I am started to have an experience here. That there's something here that evidently must be trying to help me. And it started from the moment I took the actions I didn't believe in. And if it's kind of like a scientist entering into a working hypothesis. You're giving me an idea. And the idea, I do not believe that there is a power source in the fabric of existence, and you're even implying it's deep down within me, which is really crazy. And that power source is available to me, and all I have to do is reach towards it, and it will help me. Now, I don't believe that. And it's like you guys don't care. Let's enter into a working hypothesis. Let's conduct ourselves as if that's a possibility, and let's see if it proves to be true or false. And it proved to be true over and over and over again. For the last many years, 20 years, I guess. Yeah, probably. I go every summer over to the UK. And the first time I ever went over there, I was in London, and I was enthralled. I would never believe, what's a bum like me doing a place like this? It was amazing, and it's a very historical place. We don't have anything that old here. And I'm down in Westminster, which is the old part of London, where Parliament is, and Westminster Abbey, and Buckingham Palace, and Hyde Park, and Trafalgar Square. And it's an amazing part of London. And the street lights are all gas. And back years ago, before they had the technology of the computer systems and the electric starters that light the gas street lights, they had these poles. Some of the older poles were still around back then. Now most of them are gone. They've kept replacing them. But the older poles would be a little box on the side of the pole. That would stick out just a little bit, and with a door on the box, but the doors were welded shut and painted over. And what that was back in the day before the technology was there was a guy that would walk up and down the streets of Westminster at twilight, and he'd open that little door and he'd stick a key in there and he'd turn that gas on. And he'd reach up with a pole with a long flame on the end and he'd light the street light and he'd move on to the next street light. You could go up to the top of the highest building in London and look out over the Westminster and try to see where the guy was lighting those street lights. You couldn't see where he was, but you could see where he'd been. And I could sit in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous with 2 years sober, and I couldn't see where God was, but my God, I could see where he'd been. And one of the greatest blessings that you guys did, and you took advantage of my weakness, and you got me to start sponsoring people and doing 12-step work when I was brand new. I didn't want to do it, and if you do that, you're up close and personal to the hand of God. And I'll tell you, I still do a lot of that because I'll tell you, it's pathetic, but my relationship with God and the miracles in my life, I become almost callous to them after a while. Like I just take them for granted. And I start to lose my conscious contact, and it starts shifting into just theoretical. I have faith, God's there, I have faith. But I start losing that connection. And there's an old story about him. And what's so I knew people are so important. There's this priest, he's walking down the street, and he goes by the bottom of this really long, steep hill, and he looks up, and there's this crazy little kid about 3 years old on a tricycle, and he starts heading down the hill. I mean, he's really going fast, and the priest's getting concerned. Oh my God, there's a bump at the bottom. This is going to be bad for this kid. Sure enough, that kid hit that bump, flipped over, he scuffed his leg up, and he goes, God damn it. And the priest says, son, don't say that. Say, God bless me. The little kid goes, oh, okay, Father, God bless me, okay. Week later, the priest walking down the same street, looks up, here's that crazy kid coming down that hill like a bat out of hell. He's coming down there like he's really zooming down that hill. And the priest is watching him going, oh, God, and he hits that bump, flips over, smashes up the front wheel of that tricycle, all bent up out of shape. His pants are all ripped up. He's bleeding on his leg. And the kid gets up and he starts to cuss. He looks at the priest and he goes, God bless me. And the wheel of the bike straightens out. His cuts go away and his pants just come back together. And the priest goes, God damn it. Right? And that's what new people do in my life, man. I could tell them, let's just pray about it. And then the universe shifts and I go, oh my God. That's amazing. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot. All right? And I started to discover that this power loves me. It obviously has no taste at all. But this power loves me. And you know how you know that? You know how you know something or someone loves you? By the way they treat you. And I got a better life than I deserve. And I know that. And God worked often through the people in AA and He still does to this day. I have a remarkable sponsor who I know God has worked through him at times. When he said things to me he's never said to anybody before. And it's almost as if that covenant that it talks about when two or more of us come together for the purpose of recovery, God is in the midst. And I've had that experience. And those of you that sponsor people, I know you've had that experience where you desperately want to say something that'll help someone, a new guy, but you got nothing. And all of a sudden, it's like a portal opens up deep down inside you and words come out of you that you never said before, and they're right. And where they come from? I think they come from the great reality that the book says is deep down and within us. And every once in a while, I can't manufacture that, I can't control it, I can't call it on will. But it usually happens when I'm forgetting myself and I'm caring about somebody else. And God seems to work through me at that time. And God, if you could control that, we'd all be in a casino somewhere, wouldn't we? Getting that intuitive number 9. We'd just be all doing it. But you can't control it, and you can't use it to serve yourself. But we don't have to use it to serve ourselves. Chuck used to say, your life, you don't have to worry about yourself. Your life's none of your business. Forget yourself. Go help God's kids, and if you go help God's kids, God will take care of you. You know something? That has been my experience. Absolutely. If you were to go into if you went throughout the last little over 38 years of sobriety, and you examined every problematic point in that sobriety, and there's been a bunch, and you set a CSI team in to investigate the source of the problem, you're going to find my DNA over all of it. Right? When it says in the book, we're the manufacturers of our own misery, they're not kidding. I'm the guy who does it. Now, sometimes I don't know them because I'm asleep in my life. I'm listening to the story Bob tells himself. I'm up in Bob land, listening to the story of the universe. I'm not experiencing real life. I'm up here. I'm listening to the story of life. I am the producer of at times have been the producer of confusion rather than harmony. There's a line in our book that I just love. I wish I could, if I die and go to heaven or hell or wherever Bill Wilson is, and I want to go where he is, wherever he is, I'm going to ask him, I got to find out if he had the sense of humor I think he had. Because he says some bizarre, funny stuff in that book. One of the lines I love, and I think it's kind of funny in his presentation of it, he says that we are extreme examples of self-will run right, and then he says, "Oh, we usually don't think so." He's not saying, Bob, you have a problem with self-will. He's saying, Bob, you're an extreme. Bob, here's the worst of human nature. See that thing up in the stratosphere? That's you, Bob. You're an extreme example of, and you don't think so, do you? No, you got a mild case, don't you? Yeah, I know. But I think that's right. I think I am an extreme example. And Alcoholics Anonymous is designed to dial Bob down from Bob, to dial me down in my own life, because I get too full of myself. I know I'm a depressive. In my last drunk, I tried to commit suicide. I can't imagine a state of greater self-obsessive self-involvement than the depression leading me to try to kill myself. I mean, I can't imagine getting your stuff here any more here than it was there at that moment. It wasn't clinical depression, and I've been diagnosed as that. It's a depression. It's similar. If you look in the DSM, they look the same. It's the depression of the obsessively self-involved. Right, and I'm that guy. And I drank alcohol because alcohol freed me from the bondage of self. And when alcohol stopped doing that, things are bad because I got nowhere to go now. And I can't stand myself as is. And I can't change me. And not from a lack of trying. By the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd been hypnotized, I primal screamed, I did rational emotive therapy, I did transactional analysis, I did Gestalt. I mean, if it came, I did transcendental meditation, divine light mission. I mean, if it came up on the radar with a chance of helping me, I took a run at it. I read so many self-help books. My problem's not lack of knowledge. My problem's lack of a position in the universe that makes sense. It's a lack of action. And so, in 1978, I'll go back. In 1977, I ended up in an emergency room. Happens to me a lot because I'm an idiot. You know, I sometimes automobile accidents or something, or I get in fights a lot in bars. Sometimes in bars or on the street when I'm really drunk. But I'm not brave enough to pick a fight with you until I'm so drunk that I've lost my coordination. You get really hurt like that, I'm telling you. I have seen the ceilings of a lot of bars in my day. But this particular time, in a drunken rage, I put my fist through a plate glass window and it wouldn't stop. I wouldn't stop bleeding. So they took me into the hospital. Some people didn't know what to do because I'm bleeding all over the place. So they took me to the emergency room. And they checked me in there, and they stitched me up, and then they gave me some x-rays. Well, I've been in there waiting for the results of the x-rays. So I've been in there like maybe 2 hours, and they do not have a bar in a hospital waiting room in an emergency. And I'll tell you, if they ever needed a bar somewhere, they need one there, I'll tell you. Because I've been in there 2 hours, so I'm kind of sobering up against my will. You know how the alcohol just depletes out of your system? And there's a rack of medical pamphlets in there, and I just started looking at them, like heart disease and diabetes. There's this one pamphlet, there's 7 warning signs of cancer. So I grabbed that pamphlet and I start thumbing through it. And one of the things that stood out, one of the warning signs was something along the lines of unexplained intermittent bleeding. I remember reading that, thinking, oh, I dry heave sometimes, sick, I tear my stomach, I bleed, blood comes out sometimes. Oh my God, there have been one or two occasions I've been bleeding out of both hands. I got terminal cancer. And then it was like an epiphany. I thought, oh my God, it's metastasized into a brain tumor. That's why I do bizarre things and can't remember them. That's why I'm so emotionally inappropriate. I'll fly off the handle at somebody. That's why sometimes I'm so withdrawn, I'm almost catatonic and depressed. That's why nobody likes. I have a brain tumor. And I liked that idea. Man, I'd say, I'm going to die. It's going to be horrible. I'm going to die. But I knew what was going to happen. They were going to find out that I had terminal cancer. They're going to take me on a cancer ward somewhere. They're going to have to notify my mother and father, who would have nothing to do with me. They are not welcome in their house. They will not help me anymore. I'm out of the will. They think I'm a bum, and they're going to find out that I had a brain tumor. And they're going to come running to the hospital just begging my forgiveness. And then, of course, all my ex-girlfriends are going to be notified. And they're going to come running to the hospital. Oh, we're so wrong, Bob. They're going to be properly ashamed of themselves. And I loved it. I used to just sit and think about that. Sometimes I could feel it growing, you know. And I ended up another detox. And in the detox, this medical guy's checking me in, and he's checking my vitals. He's talking about alcoholism. I said, Doc, I have a brain tumor. And he looks at me like, really? Has this been verified? I said, well, yes, it has. It's been verified by the smartest guy on the planet, me. And so he got very excited. He set me up for a whole bunch of tests, blood work. They put me in a tube. They shot dye in me. They did all this stuff. And I'm waiting for the results. For my redemption, I'm going to die. It's going to be horrible, but everybody's going to see how wrong they'd been about me. In Alkalogic, that looks like a good deal. And I'm waiting, and they call me in one day, and the guy's got these papers, and he says, I've got the results back from your test. You don't have a brain tumor. Matter of fact, you don't have cancer at all. You have a small ulcer and a small hemorrhoid. I wanted a second opinion. It was like, and he was excited, and you're going to live, you're not going to die. Really, Doc? You know, I was like, I would have rather found out at that point in my life that I was going to die, but I was going to be right and you were going to be wrong. That's how egocentric I'd become. I have no self-esteem, but I've grown this gigantic ego to compensate. That's why I'm so judgmental. That's why I heard this in AA. It's so true. That we're the only people that can lay in the gutter and look down on everybody else. Before my parents would take my calls anymore, before they stopped taking them, one of the last phone calls I had where I talked to my mom, she couldn't help. It was like she was rubbing it in my face. She was telling me about some of these idiots, and they're idiots too, that I went to high school with, and how they got these big lives, and the one guy's is an intern, and the other guy's an insurance agency, and one guy's building a house, and he's got kids, and they're just so happy. I remember I was, not too long after that, I'm sitting in the park, sucking on a bottle of Richard's Wild Irish Rose, and I'm thinking about what my mom said about those stupid guys I went to high school with. Yeah, and I'm thinking, yeah. They might have all that big life and everything. I don't think they could take it living like this. I'm telling you that I could be that pathetic with sores that don't heal because I don't eat. I got tremors and shakes like an old burnt-out wino, and I'm totally alone on the streets, and I'm finding ways to look down on people, right? I did that in AA. It almost killed me. You couldn't help me in AA. And now some people have it. There's different. I think there's levels of severity of suffering from alcoholism when you get sober, because I know guys that have stayed physically dry for decades without ever working the steps or helping anybody or nothing. But they're miserable. I mean, I have one guy where he came to me at 23 years sober. He's going to kill himself. Took 23 years of no treatment of alcoholism, just not drinking, going to a few meetings now and then. Tough guy. He's a tough guy. If there's a scale, he's like the John Wayne of alcoholism. I mean, he's a tough guy. 23 years. Tough guy. I'm more like the Pee Wee Herman of alcoholism, right? When my emotions start putting the screws to me, I'll cave. I'll cave, man, because I'm so obsessed with how I feel that I can't take long periods of emotional pain without going and getting something. I can't. And so I would relapse time and time again, and I can't tell you how many times I would swear to myself, sometimes sobbing uncontrollably, and mean every bit of it, that I'm never touching that stuff again, and I always go back to it. And God, I hated myself for that. And that doctor who gave me the complete physical, he told me something. He said, what you have, kid, is you have alcoholism, but I'm a young kid. I'm in my 20s. And he said, you keep drinking, it's going to kill you, but it's going to take probably 5 more years because you're young and you bounce back quick physically. And I came to right after that in a park, and I'm so sick, and I can't get high right anymore. And there's nowhere to turn, and I'm so alone. I've been thrown out of another place, and I'm probably going to do 2 years in prison because the courts put me in there. And I don't want to go on anymore. I thought about that doctor saying 5 more years, and something inside me just snapped. I thought, I can't do 5 more weeks of this. I made the decision to kill myself. And in the decision to kill myself was a little bit of relief. Like, I'm going to get this over with. I'm going to make it stop. And I went to a bridge. Sick, hungover, shaken. I went to a bridge to make it all stop. And I got out on that bridge in a terror. I'm perched on the side of that bridge looking down below about 100 feet on these railroad tracks on the side of the river. And this terror gripped me, and it is not the fear of dying. I've been trying to drink myself to death for years, and some of you have been trying too. And it's hard because it takes a long time. It's like being kicked to death by rabbits. It just goes on and on. Oh my God, that's why so many of us start thinking about offing ourselves. We can't hang, man. It's just brutal. It's tedious. No, the fear that gripped me was not the fear of dying. It was that this wasn't high enough. And with my luck, I won't die. I'll end up paralyzed from the neck down. I'll lay in some charity ward because I'm a young kid in my 20s. I'll lay there 50 years, and nobody will bring me a drink. And I'll lay there, and do-gooders like Jared will parade newcomers through the room. I'll get to hear them say things like, well, Bob's what happens to you when you don't work our beautiful 12 steps. And I'm paralyzed. I can't even give him the one-finger salute. Now that terrified me. I'm afraid of living. I ain't afraid of dying. I'm afraid. I feel like I'm in a trap I can't spring. I've been going back and forth between 2 horrible, unsustainable states, drunkenness and abstinence, and they're both bad. And I don't know why, because the one used to be good. It ain't good no more. Little did I know I'd break down and start sobbing and come off that bridge, and I'd start hitchhiking because I'm going to do 2 years in prison in Pennsylvania. And I tried to make it to California because I thought if I could make it to California, I wouldn't freeze to death in the winter that was coming. And I'd spent winters on the streets in Pennsylvania and up in Maine, and it's tough. When you get thrown out of a halfway house at the dead of winter, man, it's tough. Because you can't even sit down. They'll roust you out again. Try to sleep in those gas station bathrooms, and somebody always dimes you out to the manager, and they're not nice. They come in, they'll kick you. They'll tell you what you are, and you're too weak to defend yourself. You have to take it and shuffle on down the street to some other place you might be able to lay down for a little bit. So I thought if I get to California, the police, maybe I'll lose myself on the beaches over there. The police won't find me. I won't have to do the 2 years, and maybe I could survive another winter. And I knew there were wineries out there, which is a program of attraction. And I got as far as Las Vegas. And I got to that horrible, horrible place that guys that drink to the point of physical addiction to alcohol like I used to do would get to, where your body's shot, your nerves are shot, you got to get some of that down and it won't stay down no more. That is a frightening, frightening place. When you get your last couple dollars and you get a quart of cheap wine and you're throwing up more than you're keeping down, and you just hoping you keep enough of it down to calm your nerves. And I checked into a detox in Las Vegas, August 28, 1978. That is not my sobriety date, because I was on medication for a while. My sobriety date's the end of October 1978. But in that detox, I met a man that I think was brought into my life by divine appointment. I think we're brought together by divine appointment. The Buddhists say when the student's ready, the teachers appear. This man was sent, was perfection. He was not the guy I would have picked. He was old, and I had long hair down to here. He was clean cut. He looked like one of those people, the square people. But he was the perfect guy for me. Then he started me on the journey, and he would not compromise anything. He wanted me to go to a lot of meetings. He wanted me to pray. He wanted me to start making amends, and he wanted me to help drunks. And I'd had a lot of therapy. I said to he's pushing me, 12-step calls, 12-step calls, 12-step. Take meetings into the detox, take meetings into the jail, take meetings over to the Samaritan out there. Help others, help others. I said, poof, he's a one-track mind, I'll tell you. And I said to him, listen, I know what you're saying, but don't you think I should work on me for a while? And he rears back and says, work on you? You've done quite enough of that. Stop it. And when he said that, I thought, I have done a lot of that. If I could have been fixed, I'd have been fixed by now. And I just started throwing myself into actions I didn't believe in, and my life started to change. I started doing a lot of things I didn't believe in, like prayer. They had me turn myself into the courts in Pennsylvania, which I didn't want to do. I was scared to death. I don't want to do 2 years. I do not jail well. But I had told this guy, if you sponsor me, I'll do anything you ask me to do. And when he said to do that, I did it. Amazing. But I'll tell you a funny thing. I wrote a letter to my P.O. It wasn't my letter. It was your letter. You wrote it. My sponsor, he told me what to put. It was a letter I would not have written, because first thing he wanted me to put in there is the address of the halfway house I was living in, which I thought was a very bad idea. Man, I said, they'll be able to pick me up. He said, yeah, we want them to know where you are and pick you up if they want to. Oh, God. How come I get a sponsor like this? Why don't I have a nurturing sponsor? But he walked me through it. I sent that letter off, and I told him in the letter I'd call 10 days. Longest 10 days of my life. I called on that time and day. I told him in the letter I'd call. And in that letter, I told him I was willing to come back and do the 2 years, anything else they wanted me to do. And my phone call goes through, and this woman puts me through to a man I don't know very much. I sat in his office a couple times. He had no reason to help me. I'm just another bum on his caseload that didn't do what he's supposed to do. But he'd read your letter. And he said, we've read your letter. Talked to my supervisor. We talked to the courts. You don't have to come back. You don't have to do the 2 years, but we're going to give you one more chance for transferring your case to Nevada. And if you do everything we ask you to do, and it was all stuff that was pretty easy. He said it'd be time served misdemeanor. If not, it's a felony, and there's no more chances, kid. I was delighted. A half dozen or so years later, I stood before the Nevada Gaming Control Board. And I sat there and I almost started to cry as I realized that they had given me an unrestricted gaming license, one of the most prestigious and difficult licenses to get on the planet. And I only was getting it because I followed your direction. That it wasn't me. And everything that you've asked me to do that has seemed frightening to me has had rewards beyond anything I can imagine. See, I guess I always will never know what's good for me. I have a sponsor. More importantly, I try to remain sponsorable. My sponsor, I love my sponsor. He's 58 years sober. He's getting old, and it scares me. I don't even want to think about what happens if he passes. I love the man. He's been so good. I can't predict what he's going to say. Sometimes I call him, and I've done something really, really, oh, God, I'm shy. I wish I wouldn't have done that. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. God, he's going to beat the crap out of me. And that's when he's the kindest, most understanding person. I've gone to him at other times where I've done something so spectacular that they should build a statue of me at GSO. And that's when he'll cut my legs out from under me, because he is not caught in the middle of me. And he can see the things that need to be starved and the things that need to be fed. My problem is I always and naturally feed the things that should be starved, and I'll starve the things that should be fed, because that's what selfish, self-seeking, self-centered people like me do. I will always go for gratification. I will always go for self-grandizement. I will always go for the things that are selfish. I will never go for the spiritual path, left alone to my own devices. So I will probably always need a sponsor. Now, I run into people in AA all the time. They say, wow, I did the work. And so God's my sponsor. Well, ultimate authority, true. In a good world, the problem is when I need direction from God the most is when it's the most inaccessible to me, because I got me right here and I'm scared to death, and that's where I need God's help, and I can't access God then. But my sponsor can. The great thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is we're not totally consumed with ourselves, all of us at the same moment. And sometimes I've been depressed. I went through 2 divorces in Alcoholics Anonymous where I got me stuck on me, and the phone rings, and it's some guy I sponsor, and he's in a lot of trouble. And you'll hear this as my head comes out of my butt, because I care about him, and he relieves me of the bondage of self. I can't do that alone. I can't will me out of me sitting in my living room. I have to do it in action, in altruistic actions. I love this life. It took me a long time before I put all my chips in the pot here. I am so glad I did. I am a satisfied customer of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks for listening.